I'm going to meme. I'm only placing ships on defense. Welcome back, Officers of the Republic. It's your Coruscant Underworld Police Chief, APGAINS. We find ourselves in a similar situation as thousands of players out there. Make sure you take the time in this video if your matchup you think is unfair. Let me know just the GP difference. I don't need a long story. I just need, I have this, my opponent has this. Let me know in the comment section. Let's get 500 comments on this video of your unfair GP matches. Now, for the haters out there who say that APGAINS is just complaining like APGAINS always does, because at the end of the day, nothing ever good comes of APGAINS, because all he does is complain. His mom hates him. His girlfriend is sleeping with a Marvel Strike Force player. He is a cuck. Nothing will ever improve. I say this to thee. I have offered up the perfect solution. The perfect solution to the problem. What is the problem? Players at lower levels are facing players with so many more teams, so much more GP, that it's impossible to win. My opponent here, let me open up our GG pages. For reference, my opponent has more than double the Zetas, more than double the Relics, and basically every other category he just completely outclasses me because he has a little bit more than 2 million GP more than me. Is this a winnable battle? Yes. Is my opponent probably not the best player in the world? I have looked at his GAC history. The answer would be yes. Am I by any means trash talking this man right here? No, not everyone cares about GAC as much as I do. But the solution that I've offered, is have there be a bracket system like we used to, not to prevent people from rising higher in the ranks, because we do want people who are overperforming to rise higher and test their mettle, right? That's a good thing. That's what we want. What we don't want is the players who have a ton of GP who don't take the game seriously as far as GAC is concerned to fall and get to the point where we are now, where we have two kind of traps that players are falling into. We have the trap of around 4 to 5 million GP, where the higher end players have been playing for a long time, or they're spenders and they don't take GAC that seriously. Joe in chat, you can stop spamming now. It's fine. Thank you so much. They don't take it that seriously. They fall to about that 4.55 million GP range. And there's kind of like this point where every player at that level has to enter Kyber like we have. We're Kyber 4, I think. And kind of go through and fight it out with all the people who are super high GP. And if they play a single battle, we're screwed. And if they don't play, we keep going to make it worse. But neither of those situations are fun for us. And then there's the lower bracket around 1 million, 1.5 million GP, where you get the 2.5, 3.5 million GP players who don't play that much. And then they fall down because they're not playing and they're losing to players who have less GP but are actually taking it seriously. And then they kind of block the 1 million GP players rounded about there. Here's the thing. If we had a system, a net, we'll call it the APGAINS approved GAC net. I might even go to Amazon right now and buy a net for next stream to illustrate my point. When I go over to Capital Games at 15,000 subscribers, make sure you subscribe if you're watching this later on YouTube. A net to catch the players who aren't as interested in GAC, because crystals and resources are tied to GAC, so players will participate. They will press that join button even if they don't really do anything. What we need is a system not to stop players from moving up if they overperform, but to stop players from moving down if they don't take it seriously or don't play at all, because no one is bothered if there's two players who are serious competitors. One is a lot less GP, one's higher. The player who's higher is going to win unless, they happen to be the worst GAC player of all time. But at least the two players are mutually agreeing that this is fun and we're going to compete. The bigger player sees it as an opportunity to be like, oh, why is GAC disrespecting me? Let me get this dub. The underdog, lower GP player sees it as an opportunity to prove their mettle and to climb, because the new GAC metric on skill is not what rank you are. Because there are players who aren't in Kyber 1 who are better than the players up there. The players who are going to be the best are the players who are going to be winning competitive, emphasis, Enfy's Nest. I say Enfy's Nest instead of emphasis now because I'm just brain dead. but Enfy's Nest on competitive matches, because a lot of matches aren't competitive. So whoever's winning the most extreme differential in
on your sponsor. That made my day when I saw its smiley face.
Thanks, Mr. Jones. The big difference is going to be how we measure how good you are. Now, a lot of that in the early game, until like maybe 6 million GP, can, you know, be achieved naturally by following the APGAINS approved farming strategy and just having a better roster. A lot of that comes down to skill if the other person followed the same account or has more GP. But what we can't have is the new players who, let's say, I got a guy, you know, every time GAC starts up, I get a million pings on Discord, people complaining about their GAC matchups. I always kind of skim over them. I look at the GP difference, but what I look for is the new players. And we had a couple of new guys in the Discord who are new players. They've been watching the guides. They've been loving all the tutorials on APGAINS.org. And I was reading their messages actually more thoroughly than I usually do, right? And they were saying, this is my first time playing GAC, and I'm facing off against players who, even though they are not going to play, I cannot beat. So they find themselves in one of two situations. The first situation is they attempt a battle, get the 10 banners for attempting it, win because their opponent didn't play and have no fun, or their opponent plays and they lose and they can't beat a team and they still get those same 10 banners and they're also not having fun. Now, the problem there is not that it's such a wild GP difference and in that right, it's unfun because of the difference. Because if you can win those matchups, those are the most fun matchups where it's competitive and you punch up. That's what the APGAINS approved farming strategy has always been about, is punching up against people who have bigger accounts and spend more money because we have better rosters. The problem is all these new players are starting off their GAC experience not having fun with the game. And what happens when they don't have fun with the game? It's the same problem with people who rush Galactic Legends who aren't veterans of the game. It's not fun. It's not fun. You're more likely to quit and go play something else. Not only does that hurt Capital Games because they're not going to, have people playing and then eventually become spenders on the game. Shut the fuck up. But it also affects you guys. You guys have less people to talk to on Discord, less people to hang out with, less friends to make in new guilds, because the player base is being artificially constricted by what would be an incredibly easy fix. Place a barrier. If you're above this GP, you cannot go below this certain zone, right? If you're above 7 million GP, you cannot fall out of Kyber. You can't fall out of Kyber, because the second you fall out of Kyber, we have the people who are pinging me in the Patreon chat, or messaging me on Patreon rather. He sent screenshots. He's 4.7 million GP. His opponent is all 6 Galactic Legends, 8.6 million GP. Now that matchup probably occurred because his opponent doesn't take the game that seriously. But if his opponent places all 6 jails on defense against his, I think it was like 2, or maybe he's almost got his 3rd, that's unwinnable. That's not fun. And while he's a veteran of the game, he might be able to stomach that more often. The players at the bottom, who for their first ever GAC experience are being put against players who just, they can't do anything with. Yes, they're going to win and eventually work through that. And so some players are going to keep going to the point where the people who aren't playing are behind them, and they can compete until they get to the next barrier, and then the next barrier, the next barrier. And maybe they grow to love the game at that point, and they stick with it. But what about all the players who are saying, I've spent 3 months of my life, because I'm free to play, or I've spent $100 to get to Hyperdrive Bundle to get level 85, and my first experience of all of the fun I've seen on an Arnold stream, or I've seen all these videos of amazing counters that all the members of the community are doing, or I'm really excited about all these features that are in this game that I just found, and now my first experience in the only game mode in the entire game that actually matters from a real standpoint, their first experience in that game is terrible. It's terrible. Could they technically win with 10 banners versus 0? Yes. And I hate people who come at me and they say, APGAINS, I got a tough matchup, but my opponent didn't play, so really I have more skill. Like, no one gives a fuck about you, and no one gives a fuck about me if we face 100 million GP player if they don't play. If the people don't play, or they don't take it seriously and they place all meme defenses, they attack once just to make sure they get the banners to get their basic rewards, I'm not going to give you a pat on the back. You shouldn't give me a pat on the back, because that's fucking pointless. That's a waste of time, right? So I don't care if you're beating 10 million GP players as a 1 million GP player because you got 11 banners and they got 0, right? That doesn't matter. And I'm not saying a lot of you guys are doing that. It's just that's one of the most common criticisms I get. One of the most common criticisms I get is that a lot of these unfair matchups are because people don't play. That's fine. Oftentimes they do. My opponent's going to play. My opponents last month all played. 1.5, 2 million GP more than me. We were able to squeak out those wins because, like today and previously, I'm going to meme. I'm only placing ships on defense. He has 2 GLs. He probably can't clear my back zones, though he has a bunch of fleets. So let's say he places only a front wall. He saves all of his fleets. He'll eventually get through my negotiator, my executor. But I'm going to pray and bank and use probably the only available strategy to me and hope and pray that he places 2 significant teams on defense, assuming that I would save for offense. He's not going to beat my ships. I'm going to save literally every inch of my account to punch up a little bit over 2 million GP, double my relics, double my zetas, double my everything, and we're probably going to lose. We're probably going to lose. We did that once. It worked. Barely. We won by like 60 banners. We're going to do this now. If we can win by 1 banner, I'll be happy. But the point is not that I'm some genius who's only placing ships on defense, because this is a terrible strategy. If I were to place level 1 characters, that would be better. Because at least then he has to actually do the battles instead of automatically getting it. So I'm hedging against him not playing. The reason I'm doing this is because the solution to the problem that most new early and mid-game players have is easily solved by the last fucking 30 minutes of however long this rant has been going on. So Capital Games, I beg you, I'm going to throw away this GAC and effectively lose on purpose for memes in the attempt that you guys recognize that it is not going to hurt the game. It's not going to hurt the skill-based matchmaking system if you just prevent these people from indefinitely following. Here's the one criticism that I just thought of why this might be a bad idea. If this goes on long enough, all of the people who are high-end will fall to the bottom, and then you'll never, ever, ever be able to bump up into the next zone. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Heinz, it might have been Gridden, it might have been Loki. I can't remember who it was. But I was on a stream, and someone said, what if you have to elect, you don't automatically, you have to press a button so that you have autonomy over yourself to move into the next tier. To go from Erodium, whatever the fuck it's called, into Kyber, I have to press a button, knowing full well that I'm going to get myself into deep shit. Right? I'll get a couple more crystals daily. My potential average crystals could go up, but I know that I'm entering a hellscape of players who don't play. That allows me to stay, to compete for number 1. So if I'm 1.5 million GP and I'm in whatever the fuck the lowest one is, Bronzium, I know that I have until a certain GP threshold to compete for number 1, like in the old system. Will that encourage people to min-max their rosters? Yes. But what's another word for min-maxing the roster? Having a good roster. Playing the game smart. This game is a game where you have 2 options to win. You have to spend money, or you have to play smart. And I don't think anyone should ever be penalized for playing smart, right? I don't think anyone should ever be penalized for playing smart. So, you have, just bring back the old GP brackets. Include the skill-based matchmaking system. You have 0 to 2 million, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 8 to 10. The second I hit 2 million GP, I'm moving up, or I have to elect to move up, or something like that. You can either automatically do it or make me elect it. Shut the fuck up. But letting these people fall and ruin the game for all of the new players who are already like, do I want to spend? I'm not going to spend. Am I liking this game? You only...
All my opponents 2 mil more GP. Mods?
Perfect timing. Yes, thank you. Thank you for stopping the rants with a roster review request, Blanco Nin 0, aka Blanco Nino. I don't even remember what I was saying. That caught me totally off guard. I need to make sure that I turn off the text-to-speech while I'm recording YouTube videos. But do something, Capital Games. Do something. If you guys want to help support APGAINS, the best way to do it is Patreon. We have an exclusive podcast with all your favorite creators. We have 24/7 APGAINS content that you guys can enjoy, 24/7 roster help. You can complain to me about your unfair matchmaking at any hour of the day. It doesn't matter. Patreon on link in the description. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, love you, and I'll see you later.